From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I am Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others.
Hello.
And joining me today as my co-host is the Patriot from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that is the President and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, George Landreth. George, are you with me today? Hello, George. John, let's try to get George back on the phone. In the meantime, I'll talk about something that is happening here, not too far from here. Residents of South Jersey are hearing booms and feeling shake, and apparently it is not an earthquake. There have been a series of large booms down the Jersey shore from Lakewood down to Vineland, New Jersey. There's no known cause from this other than the rotund governor from the state of New Jersey is back in town. That must be Chris Christie. I wonder if he and Barack Obama are walking the beaches one more time. George, I think you're back with us, aren't you?
I am. I'm there.
All right.
I'm here.
Great to have you with us today here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. George, I was just talking about a series of booms and earth shaking here in the South Jersey area. The U.S. Geological Survey, who tracks earthquakes, said it was not an earthquake. The source of these booms and the ground shaking is not known. The local Air National Guard says there are no fighter jets in the air, which would, some people might think, sonic boom, but I was just saying it could be the presence of Chris Christie back in the Garden State one more time, walking the beaches with Barack Obama. I mean, who knows? Who knows? If anybody out there knows anything else, let me know. So, George, great to have you with me today. What's going on? What's on your radar screen?
Well, I don't know. I was just at a lunch, and we were all trying to figure out if this...
John, are we losing George again? Oh, gosh. Can't lose George. George, call us back, or John, call George back, or somebody do something.
Yeah, here you go.
This is live radio here. George, are you with us?
I am. I'm with you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but
maybe the booms, these mysterious booms, is affecting something between here and Washington D.C. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have the, you look at this debate that's coming up tonight, and I think it has the potential to be very interesting. It should be different than they've been, just because you got one of the major participants who's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it could just be more of the same. And I don't mean to be critical of debates. I think debates are very important. It's a way we vet our candidates. But the other side of debates, quite frankly, is that the longer you have them, the more they become a repeat of the last episode, so to speak. I mean, there's only so many times that you can listen to somebody tell you how great their tax plan is, or Donald Trump telling us that China's beating us or whatever before you kind of go, yeah, I've heard this speech before. So what do you think? Do you think it's going to be much different tonight, or do you think it's going to be essentially more the same?
Well, it will be different because Donald Trump will not be there. Therefore, he will not be the center of attention. So that in itself will make it different. This will give opportunities for people like Cruz and Rubio, maybe Carson, maybe Bush, to talk about some of the things other than Donald Trump and what Donald Trump has said about them. So that might be different. Maybe we'll really get a feeling of these other candidates. You won't have Donald Trump sucking up all the oxygen in the room, per se. So you'll get to hear a little bit more of what the other candidates have to say.
That's interesting. I hope you're right in terms of that we have some substance. I do think
trying to be positive here.
Right. No, I think you make a good point. I think the point of a debate ultimately isn't just to see somebody's mannerisms in speech, but to hear the substance of what they would do. And it's a way of somewhat impromptu. I mean, I realize they sometimes lapse into campaign speeches, but the reality is they don't know the questions. They don't know the dynamics of what's going to be done that night or that evening when they're doing the debate. So it's a little bit more impromptu, and it gives us some insights as to what their vision is. And when you spend all of your time talking about whether or not you agree with someone's tweet from the day before or the week before, that's not actually very useful to the average voter. At least I don't think it should be. It's kind of like, really? We're going to sit here and talk about someone's tweets? Come on. Yeah. And on some level, I'm hopeful that tonight will be a substantive discussion of issues, and it will give people an idea of where the candidates stand on things.
Well,
but you should see if it turns out that way. But I think you're right. I do think it gives us at least a fair shot at more substance.
Well, also something else I find is very interesting, that Trump is going to have an event of some sort during the Fox News debate. And Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum are planning to go. I think that's kind of sad and pathetic in and of itself. Yeah,
that's largely a function of when you have, half a percentage point, you'll go anywhere they'll let you come.
But
I don't mean to be mean, but that's just the truth. I mean,
that's what I mean by sad and pathetic. That here you got Huckabee and Santorum who are still declared candidates, and yet they're going to a Donald Trump event. What do they expect to do there? Are they going to bow at the altar of the Donald?
My guess is they're hoping for some TV time. I don't think it'll be useful. I'm somewhat puzzled by what Donald's doing because, I think helping our vets is a great thing to do, and it's obviously an important thing to do. The point of debates is actually to familiarize the public with where you stand on the issues. And there's nobody whose stance on the issues is, I dislike veterans and I'd like to see them harmed. That's not anybody's stance. But I do think that it actually falls in line with his strategy. His campaign is mostly a cult of personality, and so I do have to say that it's not about substance. I mean, I know he's taken a hard stand on immigration and so forth. One has to discount that based on what his previous stands on immigration have been, and that his newfound stand on immigration is different. And he's even, on the week he announced, had different visions for immigration. At one point, he was going to build a wall the whole way. Then later that week, he went down and visited and said, well, maybe part of the way, not the whole way. Well, it doesn't matter to me what he says. I mean, that's fine. He can say whatever he wants to say. He can say we'll build no wall. He gets to say what he wants to say. But I don't take people seriously when in the same week they say different things all the time. At some point it's like, wait a minute. But having said that, his campaign is mostly a cult of personality, which is why he said I could shoot people in Times Square and nobody would change their vote. And it's because it's not about substance. It's about the cult of personality, which I find very troubling because the Democrats had the cult of personality candidate last time, and I kind of smugly reassured myself that wouldn't happen to us. Mm. And my fear is that it is. We actually have a group of Republicans or conservatives who know so little about conservatism or care so little about it that the cult of personality is more important to them. To me, that's scary. You look at our founders, you look at someone like George Washington, he opposed the cult of personality, and yet he was the most famous, likable, loved person on the continent when he was asked to be president. And he was uncomfortable with that. It made him nervous. His concern was, I know I won't do anything bad with this, but we shouldn't operate this way. And so he set a standard, which I would call one of kind of this powerful humility that I really like, and I wish that we could get back to that. But now we've abandoned that in the era of Twitter and 24-hour news cycles and wall-to-wall television coverage, and we have a cult of personality, and I find this very troubling.
Well, George, we've got a candidate here in Donald Trump who's really outlandish, and you are also talking about George Washington, and it made me think as you were talking about it, if George Washington would be electable today, because he wasn't outlandish. He wasn't. I know you say cult of personality. George Washington wasn't an outspoken man. In fact, George Washington didn't speak a lot. He was embarrassed by speaking because of his teeth. Yep. I just wonder if somebody like that, somebody who was not very comfortable with public speaking, somebody who did not have natural teeth, somebody who was kind of balding, as we've seen pictures of Washington, would be electable today. When you look at people like Barack Obama, when you look at people like Mitt Romney, good-looking people, full heads of hair, nice smiles, would there be any room for a George Washington, or would there even be any room for an Abraham Lincoln, a gawky-looking man? But in those days, you didn't have TV, you didn't have radio, you didn't have the movies. Photography was in its infancy. People didn't see the people that they were elected or voting for only by drawings and sketches.
Yeah. No, that's a very, very good question.
I also have to wonder about the people who are Donald Trump supporters, and I'm on Facebook right now, and I'm looking at I'm not watching the debate tonight. Donald's not going to be there. There's nothing to be seen. So what it tells me is these people are not interested in the issues. They're not interested in the candidates. All they want is to see this outlandish behavior. They want to see the media freak show. Right. That's all they're interested in.
They want to go to the circus, and they want to see a really good juggling act, I guess. It's bizarre to me, but I have to say I was somewhat disappointed when I did some math. There are some people that say that Trump is approaching 40% support. I'm not sure that's accurate, but nonetheless, that's what some polls suggest. We know that the current president has an approval rating of roughly 40%. So we'll assume that those two universes are different people. They may not be, but we'll assume for the sake of the argument that they are. Right. That means to me that we have 80% of the population that's essentially willing to select a leader based on a cult of personality, kind of what I would call frivolous grounds. Yeah. And if that is true, and I'm hoping and praying it's not true, if that is true, that means democracy in America is over. We are done. And the great experiment of constitutionally limited government in America officially is over. Mm-hmm. And you have one guy who talks about the idea of the power of the pen and the phone, and he's the imperial president, and he can do whatever he wants. And if you listen carefully to Donald Trump, quite frankly, most of his claims and most of his actions are, again, him doing something. It's not in the context of a constitution. Right. I know we got to take a break, so I'll be quiet. Yes, we do.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, rebooting Liberty Radio and AM/FM 24/7, in addition to a whole bunch of others. Don't go away. George and I'll be right back. But today's show is brought to you by the First Amendment and protected by the Second. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. Hey, George, I wanted to get through our guest list today, kind of in a hurry, because I have another question I have to ask of you about the election and the polls and things. But who were you going to be interviewing today at 3:35, George?
Well, we've got Craig Bannister. He's the editor of MRC TV, and of course he also is responsible for the CNSnews.com, media relations, public relations, and those sorts of things. He's been a long-time activist and, of course, journalist and communicator, and he has got a great piece. It's not good news, but it's a great article that we want to talk with him about. The bad news that he's telling us is what Obamacare wants to do. He wants to do for your retirement accounts what he has done for your health insurance. Let's just put it that way, and that's what we'll be talking at that hour.
All right, and at 4:05, we're going to be talking with Raymond Freeman. He is the CEO of Mile 2, which offers the highest level certifications and training in cybersecurity. And we're going to be talking with Raymond about cybersecurity, the need for it, how people who are interested in getting into that field can. And we also want to pick his brain a little bit about the Hillary Clinton emails. So, George, who do you have at 4:30?
We've got former Congressman Paul Brown. He is a doctor, a medical doctor. He has been a physician for all of his life, except for the period of time where he was representing a congressional district down in Florida. He was a good rock rib conservative, and he is going to be discussing the Tea Party Leadership Fund and the GOP debate tonight. The Tea Party Leadership Fund is something he's associated with and helps lead, and he'll have some interesting insights to what's going on there. Again, should be a very good discussion.
All right. George, I'm looking at the Real Clear Politics, the latest 2016 presidential polls. And as far as the Iowa Republican presidential caucus, you had Trump at 32%, Cruz at 25%, Rubio 18%, Carson 8%, Paul 2%, Bush 4%, Christie 2%, Kasich 2%, Huckabee 2%, Florina 2%, Santorum 0%. And then, just follow me for a minute, then you have the New Hampshire Republican presidential primary. And this is from the Suffolk University poll that has Trump 27, Cruz 12, Kasich 12, Rubio 10, Bush 11, Christie 6, Carson 4, Farina 4, Paul 2, Huckabee 0, Santorum 0. Well, there's something interesting about these polls. They have Trump in the lead, yes. But when you look at the numbers supporting Trump, in Iowa, you only have 32% supporting Trump. In New Hampshire, you only have 27% supporting Trump. And if you go down to South Carolina, you have 36%. And these are polls taken of Republican people, likely Republican voters, I don't know. But even in South Carolina, you've got 36% who support Trump. So basically what I'm getting at, George, is roughly only 1/3 of the people responding to these polls are favoring Donald Trump. Okay? But because the field is so crowded, the numbers are diluted with the other candidates. So my thinking is okay, get rid of Carson, Paul, Bush, Christie, Kasich, Huckabee, Florina, and Santorum, and let's divide those votes up among Trump, Cruz, and Rubio. I bet they're all about the same. I bet they're all going to get about 1/3. Because I think the people who are already supporting Trump are supporting him. And there are people who are supporting the other candidates because, A, they like that candidate, and B, they don't like Trump. So I think if the other candidates were not there, Trump may pick up a couple percentage points, but I think that Cruz and Rubio would pick up even more, which in the long run would make them all about 33%. Your thoughts?
Well, I tend to agree with you. One, if you look at the polls, what you see, if you look deeper down and dive down into some of the crosstabs, is that Trump is the second choice of very few people. In other words, he has a loyal group of people who like him, and everyone else doesn't. And as a result, whereas people like Rubio and Cruz are the second choice of a number of people. So if you don't pick up they may not have those, maybe right now someone's supporting someone like Carson. A person who's supporting Carson's second choice might be Cruz, or it might be Rubio, or it might be some group of the two. It seems that according to polling, it's not as likely to be Trump. So I agree with you. As the field winnows down, you are not going to have a lot of that winnowing go to Trump is my guess. I mean, unless people start changing their mind. I don't know how he's going to change their mind, though. I had a friend today who's actually a big Trump supporter, and I said, if Trump loses Iowa, what is he going to say the next day? And he said, oh, I know exactly what he'll say. He's going to say that the Iowans are stupid idiots, and he's going to lay into them like nobody's ever seen. And I said, I know, he's already done that once. He actually did that once already. And that was when, of course, it was announced that back, I think, in November, when Carson had bumped past him by a sizable margin briefly. And, of course, that's when he started attacking Carson and so forth. And that's, which proves the lie that he only attacks people who've already attacked him. He attacks people who he thinks are a threat to him. And that sometimes can just be you're ahead of him. In other words, if you're in the car ahead of him, you're a threat to him, he'll attack you. He's not going to attack you simply because you attacked him. But at any rate, I know that that's the big lie he always tells, and that's the big lie that the media, I mean, even on Fox News, people repeat that like it's true. Yeah. It cracks me up. I mean, it's like, you guys don't pay very close attention, do you? But at any rate...
there's something I wanted to say about Trump before we go to the break, and it hit me last night. It seems like everybody wants to be king. Everybody wants to be on the top of the mountain. Everybody wants the tallest building in town. So I'll use the tallest building in town because Trump is seen as this tremendous creator of buildings. Well, right now, Donald Trump wants the tallest building in town. But one thing that I'm noticing about him, instead of going and getting a lot of bricks and mortar to build his building taller, he wants to take a sledgehammer to everyone else's building. He is a building buster. He's not a building creator. He hasn't, other than his statements about Muslims, other than his statements about sealing the borders, which gained him such attraction to a lot of people. Where has he talked about building America? Where?
That's a fair point. I mean, basically, his message is China's, I mean, I can give a speech now, China, we don't win anymore. China's beating us. Mexico's beating us. They're laughing at us.
But where's his plan? Okay,
but that's not actually a plan.
That's not a plan.
That's a list of grievances.
Yeah, right. Hey, George, with that, guess what? We are up against our break, and you are listening to Conservative Commandos with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, AM/FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Craig Bannister, editor at MRC TV and CNSnews.com. Don't go away. You won't want to miss this one. Obama wants to take over your retirement accounts the way he took over medical care.
Paul Dilks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that it's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth, President and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And George Landreth, we do have our first guest with us, and the honor of that introduction is yours, so please take it away.
Excellent. We have Craig Bannister. He's the editor of MRC TV. He's also responsible for all of CNS News.com, CNSnews.com's media relations, public relations, or marketing programs. He has also served as the communications managers for the Intelligent Transportation Society of America. He has spent a career managing communications, public relations, media, and he's done this for nonprofit organizations such as the National Automobile Dealers Association, the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, and the Ethiopian Community Development Council. Craig has been a committed conservative and just as a stand-up guy. Craig, welcome here to the show. We're great to have you. It's just great to have you here on Conservative Commandos.
Hi there.
Well, you've written a really interesting article. I say interesting because it's informative. It has lots of great information. I wouldn't say it's a welcome article. The news that it gives to me, I would count as bad news because essentially, if I'm going to summarize this, I would say in a sentence, Barack Obama wants to do to your retirement accounts what he has done to your health insurance.
Well, that's my fear with this administration and with liberals in general. You often need to read between the lines, not just of what they're saying, but of what it implies and what it means. And the White House rolled out the president's plan to overhaul retirement savings. And if you read their fact sheet, if you look at his comments on it, even in the State of the Union, he likened it to Obamacare. And you see a lot of very disturbing similarities.
Well, tell us what some of those similarities are.
Well, as you know, one of the contentious points in Obamacare is the employer mandate, where employers are required to provide health care insurance, and likewise, you and I and every American is required to have it under penalty of law, or certainly of finances. Well, likewise, in his retirement savings overhaul, this would require employers to automatically enroll their workers in an IRA. Now, that may sound benign, may even sound good, but I get concerned any time I am automatically enrolled in anything without my consent or permission or knowledge. Likewise,
you make a very good point, because obviously it's good to have a retirement account. It's good to plan ahead. I would argue there's all kinds of things that it's good to do. That doesn't mean I want the government making me do it. And I think
it's good to eat broccoli, but I don't want a broccoli mandate.
There you go. I'm with you on that, and I like broccoli too.
I've got, as long as you got melted cheese on it.
I like it just plain with some butter and stuff. But
well, actually, last night the wife and I went out backstage. House had a delicious steak, and as a side dish, the broccoli was very tasty.
But you did it of your own choice,
That's
though.
Right.
You had a choice of different side dishes.
Yes, I did.
In this case, the government is telling you will have a 401k or an IRA. And from there, it's only a short step, I fear, from requiring you to put something in that IRA. If you don't, maybe, somewhere down, as they say, there's no such thing as a 1 penny tax, even if it starts out as such. Here, once you're forced to have a retirement account, are they eventually going to force you to put something in it or penalize you if you don't, just as they do with Obamacare? Or down the road, is this going to become like Social Security, where it's just going to be automatically deducted by law from your paycheck?
That's a pretty good question. I think you've hit the nail on the head here in terms of what some of the problems are. There's lots of good things. I think being nice.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Oh, so you have more bad news.
Yes, this would also create state-run marketplaces. Does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, where have I heard that bad idea before?
The Obamacare, I believe, where the states were having exchanges, and as you know, they're going bankrupt. Well, this would create what they call retirement marketplaces, and apparently these would be state-level auto IRAs that the government would be responsible for. And with that, of course, you can't have anything government-run without additional regulations. So the Department of Labor has proposed regulations and issued guidance regarding this, because you can never have enough government intervention.
Right. Once you put government in charge of something, then, of course, you have to have 10,000 rules as to how they're going to be in charge of it.
Because, as liberals say, if only the government had more money and more power, think of the utopia we could have.
Oh, exactly. And
is my voice dripping with enough sarcasm? Or I hope no one's taking me seriously.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that. I hope our listeners did as well. They'll all get off the phone, they'll all get off the radio show and go, oh my gosh, I thought Craig was a conservative, but he was, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Whether, it doesn't matter what the issue is, it can be global warming, whatever it is, if you will give us more of your money and more of your freedom, we can save you from the coming apocalypse.
Right, and as Benjamin Franklin, I believe, said, anyone willing to trade a little bit of freedom for a little bit of security doesn't deserve either and will soon lose both.
Yeah, and that seems to be the trajectory of this presidency. Hopefully we'll have the wisdom to undo the damage that he has done in the coming years, but you never know. Well, what are some things what you mentioned, this is a plan he's talked about. Now, obviously, he didn't get up and introduce it the way you and I have discussed it, which is not a surprise. I mean, generally, when you're trying to do something that takes away people's liberty, you don't tell them, by the way, I'm trying to take your liberty away. You always advertise the good things you're trying to do for them.
Right.
But having said that, what are some of his public statements that have that essentially where your ears went up and you said, uh-oh, I've heard this before, what's he going to do? Kind of walk some of the listeners through so that they can become a little more trained ear, and when they hear these things in the future, they'll know we could have a problem. And also, we're gonna. You may probably need to give me a quick answer, and then if you would you stay for the break?
Sure. Again,
that question, and then we'll come back.
Okay. I would say anytime they're promising you something for nothing, you have to be very, very concerned, such as this the free college plan and affordable care. Someone once said, if you think health care is expensive now, wait until they make it free.
That's exactly right. That is right. Well, let me just ask. Rick, of course, is here with us. Rick is the founder of Conservative Commandos. Rick, do you have? I know we need to go to break, but do you have anything you want to break in on before we go to break?
No, let's go to break, and after that, I do have some things I want to bring.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Mr.
Good. I think we both have some. This is a very interesting topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM FM 24/7. Our guest this segment is Craig Bannister from MRC TV and CNSNews.com, and we're talking about a new item on the Obama agenda, Obama Safe. Be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night at Concord Bridge in Trenton. for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting, Liberty Radio, AM/FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. And our guest this segment is Craig Bannister. He's the editor of MRC TV and is responsible for all CNS News, media relations, public relations, and marketing programs. Craig Bannister, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Rick.
Well, you know, we're discussing your article with you that the White House unveils ObamaSafe, employer mandate, mandatory enrollment, state-run marketplaces, very similar, very eerie to that of Obamacare. But, Craig Bannister, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for MRC TV, I would have never heard about this. Is this a trial balloon that they're floating? Is this going to be an executive action? Is he going to try to get a pass through Congress? Is he going to pass it on to the next administration? I mean, what's the story?
Well, those are all excellent questions. But as you know, with Republicans controlling the House and Senate, Obama has turned more and more to executive action and regulations, putting out guidance, putting out rules, and he has even threatened to do such where he says he's already got the Department of Labor working to come out with new rules and regulations, which, of course, would not require congressional approval.
But Craig Bannister, if this is going to be mandatory, if it's going to be mandatory for employers to open IRA employee accounts, is it also going to be mandatory, as you say, for people to contribute to them? And does that then not become a tax the way Obamacare is? And correct me if I'm wrong, I tend to be a little stupid sometimes. I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, but aren't all taxes supposed to originate in the House of Representatives?
Well, not since John Roberts' vote on Obamacare, where I think he vacillated back and forth between arguing it's a tax, it's a penalty, it's a tax, whatever we need to call it to get it to pass. So yeah, that's my fear. That's my concern, is that otherwise you're going to have all these empty accounts out there, and as you know, the administration believes that Americans are not bright enough to make their own purchase decisions, and so the government must protect them when it comes to shopping for food or cars or just about anything else. So obviously, if people aren't bright enough to put money into their IRAs, they're going to need government guidance. They're going to need government help, prodding.
You know, Craig, when Obamacare was rolled out with a lot of fanfare. This thing is really coming in under the radar screen. I mean, and why is that? Are people just becoming numb to more socialism?
Well, you have a Democratic socialist climbing in the polls right now over on the liberal side. It's very enticing when someone is promising to give you something for nothing, and the one percenters are going to pay for it all. It's an easy message to sell, I think. Are you familiar at all with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
No, I'm not. Educate me, please.
Okay, well, basically that it begins with, human beings first. Their first priority is, food, shelter, etc. And as those needs are met, then their focus becomes more and more on loftier goals, such as creating a utopia, fairness, diversity, tolerance, etc. Mm-hmm. And maybe America's just gotten to the point now where, being the greatest nation on earth with the most freedom and the most economic prosperity, that America has turned to socialist ideals where if everyone, where we try to ensure not only equal opportunity but equal outcome.
Well, you see, another thing is very concerning to me about this, as you have in here, despite the failures of Obamacare, state-run health care exchanges, the president's, and you call him that, not me, but Obama's savings plan looks to create similar state-run retirement marketplaces for saving plans. So, Craig Bannister, what that tells me is they're going to tell you who you can do business with. They're going to pick and choose who you can do business with. And with that being said, I can see where they're going to tell you how to invest, where you can invest and where you can't invest. Like I'm sure Smith & Wesson, the gun manufacturer, you will not be allowed to invest in that company with money in your IRA.
Or in any company that... like Chick-fil-A, that might exhibit homophobic tendencies.
Or ExxonMobil, because after all, big oil is bad.
Oh, the fossil fuels and carbon dioxide. So yes, there could be a number of moral value judgments and restrictions based on what you can invest in.
Well, George, George, we got Social Security now. We have Social Security now. George, do you think that this could just be a plan? They did it with Obamacare. They took 1/6 of our economy in Obamacare. Okay, how much do people have invested right now? If you make this mandatory, then you make it mandatory how much they must put into these accounts, and soon you're going to have the single payer IRA agent, the federal government.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
That we are going to take all this money and we are going to invest it how we think you should be investing it. Because we can make better choices than you can.
Well, because the enlightened bureaucrats can make better investment decisions about your money than you can, and they're doing it for your own good.
Yep. Well, exactly. And one thing for sure...
And that's what scares me, Rick.
One thing for sure, investments in things like Solyndra will always be permissible.
Probably be mandatory, George.
Yeah, you'll never have a retirement if they...
I bet they mandate a certain percentage of your retirement go into green energy projects. I bet you. Because once they're telling you to do all these other things, they can tell you how your money must be allocated.
Yes, and a lot of this savings money could be used to help bail out Social Security and other entitlement programs.
Wow.
See, it's your basic pyramid scheme where you need to keep adding people or revenue sources at the bottom in order to sustain it.
George, you're down there in Washington. You're this president and CEO of a think tank. You talk to people in Washington. In fact, you were at a meeting this morning. You won't tell me what meeting and who was there, but you talk to people. Have you heard about this, George?
I have not heard a lot about it. I did hear some of the stuff that Craig has mentioned, but I hadn't put all the pieces together because I've been keeping other issues in my mind and so forth. But this is what government does. It particularly when it realizes that what it wants to do isn't popular, it will essentially slide it by you when you're not looking. And this president's made it very clear that he thinks there's a lot left to be done, and I think he understands that it's going to be hard to get it done given the current climate. So he's going to play all kinds of games to get the stuff done. But I think we owe a real debt of gratitude to Craig, because this is an important issue, and we have to be aware of this stuff. I mean, if you're going to play defense and stop bad things, it's helpful to know what's coming.
Exactly, and as we were saying earlier in the show, always be aware of buzzwords like access. Giving people, they refer to access to workplace retirement savings the same way they referred to access to health care and access to contraception and abortifacients, which really meant access to free contraception and abortifations.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to have a program for free access to yachts.
I'd rather have free access to airplanes. That would be my choice.
Oh, we could have a government program for that, too.
Hey, Craig Bannister, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate the work you do. How do people follow it?
Simply go to mrctv.org and click on the snarky blog of your choice.
Well, I really want people to know about this, and this article again is White House unveils Obama Save, employer mandate, mandatory enrollment, state-run marketplaces by our guest, Craig Bannister. Craig, I want to thank you for joining us. You take care. God bless.
Thanks for having me.
And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media. Oh no, CPR is now American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, AM FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Raymond Friedman. He's the CEO of 2 Mile, a cybersecurity company. Be right back.
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide. Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sport Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sport Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net. At 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. You can also hear our show at any time of the day by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is Raymond Friedman. He's the CEO of 2 Mile, which offers the highest level certifications and training in cybersecurity. Raymond, welcome to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
How you doing? Thank you for having Mile 2 and myself on. I appreciate it.
Well, Raymond, first of all, I understand you have some connections to the Philadelphia area, here where we broadcast from.
Yes, indeed. I actually am a graduate bachelor's degree at LaSalle University. So it was a pretty cool time.
All right. So you definitely spent some time in the area. And also, please tell us about 2 Mile. What do you guys do?
Basically, we are a cybersecurity certification organization that has accreditations like from the NSA, CNSS, and we're on Homeland Security NICS training schedule, as well as a required certification with FBI Tier 1 to Tier 3. So that's what Mile 2 does. We're basically focused around certification.
Well, there's you can't turn on the TV or the radio or look at a newspaper or website today without something about cybersecurity being in the news. But could you talk for a minute about the kinds of careers that are open to people that are interested in a career in cybersecurity?
Sure. I mean, it used to be, cybersecurity used to be kind of like the redheaded stepchild, right? It was an inconvenience to implement these type of controls or this technology to overall businesses because they cost money and it takes time and it slows down sales processes. But throughout time, we've realized that it's become a huge liability to have vulnerabilities within your infrastructure, right? You host intellectual property, you've got to safeguard your network to make sure it's running. And now cybersecurity is mandatory. It's part of the process. And so because this is the case, cybersecurity is the hottest technology and, of course, workforce to get into. So some of them, or different types of jobs that are important, are penetration testers, or I guess the quote-unquote original term was ethical hacker, which, sounds like an oxymoron, but it's a penetration tester. There's incident handling engineers that, deal with malware if they get in, and of course there's forensics guys, network and digital. So it just really depends on what your flavor is, right?
Right. So for someone who's interested in the cybersecurity, how does 2 Mile help them to achieve their goals?
So Mile 2 is a certification organization, and we've developed a very proprietary training programs. So our programs basically follow industry standard or recognized standards, and we follow particular methodologies that are unique to ourselves but are aligned with industry NIST standards.
Right.
And they follow from entry level to advanced in specific disciplines. So we provide the actual training, right? Okay. So they come and they train with our program for 5 days, sometimes 10 days, and then they attempt to achieve the certification, Mile 2 certification, like penetration testing engineer. Mm-hmm. So once they pass, they become certified, and they have an accredited certification associated to their person.
Right, let me ask you a crazy question. The 9/11 hijackers, the ones that destroyed the World Trade Centers, they came to the United States. They went to schools to learn how to fly airplanes. That's what allowed them to do their dirty work. Have you had instances where people have come to 2 Mile to try to enroll that you looked at these people, you looked at their backgrounds and say, something's not right here, that they're up to no good?
Well, first of all, Mile 2 is all over the world, right? Our biggest market spaces, of course, are Canada and the U.S.
Right.
And you have to understand that a lot of the programs and policies that we provide are already universally known. They're already on the Internet. And very proprietary, unique controls that we can disclose are really limited to special agencies, state agencies, government agencies. So the stuff that's not open or, has the could have the largest damage, those are things that we're very careful as to who we facilitate that type of training. So it's a lot of our training, like disaster recovery, a DR plan, policy plan, these things are not, destructive. So I think it really comes down to what specific technologies you're talking about and at what level. For example, we do not go into reverse engineer publicly. These are things that we provide, or very unique codes or injections. That's not public, and it's just not presented to any training organization around the world. We are very specific as to who we facilitate this training to.
Yeah. You know, Ray, what I find very interesting, that we're so much about how even government computers today can be hacked into. You would think that the government would have the top minds to prevent it, but it continues to happen. Government computers are continued to be hacked into. How does that happen, and why can't government stop it from happening?
Well, we all know this. Government continues to expand, and they can't maintain even to do what they're doing efficiently. And we all know that the private sector does the best job. I'm a big believer of less government and, facilitating these private projects, to organizations that are masters of it. And really, I think that the government continues to, again, become larger. And you know how it is. It's very difficult to sustain even the existing operations of an ever-growing giant, much less trying to keep up-to-date newest technologies. But I have done a lot of training for the Air Force and very, three-letter agencies. You can come up with them. And I'm surprised habitually that, some of the technologies are elementary. Now, there are very advanced groups within the government, but we just don't have enough resources to combat and be responsive to what we're getting from, Asia and all sorts of different places that we constantly get bombarded. So the solution is easy. The question is, are we rational and decide to bring on the private sector? These guys, we know what we're doing, and that's what Mile 2 does. We get the highest level subject matter experts from Europe and the U.S., and we say, you know what, you're the best at this. We need you to write this workbook, create this lab guide. You're the man. And I kind of wish that the government took heed to that, but that's a whole other subject.
Well, Ray, even private individuals, homeowners, you and me and George, we can have our computers hacked. What can even individuals do to protect themselves against a cyber attack or hacking or somebody getting their personal information off their computer?
Okay, well, first of all, I can't emphasize this enough. We are a data-driven culture, and what happens is that 97% of the time, it's the stupid things. It's the simple things, right? Number one rule is, try to avoid from logging on, especially to financial applications like your banking org, on hotspots. The hotels or wherever you're at, or the Starbucks. Somebody might have poisoned the network, and they're grabbing all that information that you're logging on. And so it's so easy to capture financial information. So that's number one rule. Number two, for crying out loud, if you're going to create a password, don't do something that is so easy that a dictionary attack could grab or figure out that password. And certainly don't utilize a password that is on your social media, your dog name, your birth date, or things like that. Number three, try to limit the disclosure of your person on your social media. You can get anything now from the person. They want to market their individual, and so these are very unique things. And then finally, what I love to do is if you're going to log on, use an encrypted application. Like Kaspersky's got a encryption keylogger, and so you can actually log into whatever you want, and each your password or whatever it is that you're typing in is encrypted. So if there's somebody trying to intercept your information, they won't be able to see what it is. So these are some really simple ways and controls to implement in your personal life to avoid from getting your Google, email hacked or your banking application hacked. The number one is stay away from hotspots, man. Just pay the extra data, and you're safer doing that.
That's very interesting, because who doesn't go into a hotel nowadays and, when they check into a hotel, they log on, they check their email, they go into their social media. Hey, Ray, are you on Facebook? Or do you stay away from things like Facebook and all these other social media things?
Well, you know what? My company's on Facebook because that's just how it is. We live in a Facebook culture.
Well, you as a person, you as an individual.
I do, but it is very personal. If to my Christian friends or kids that we help out. We privately help out a lot of kids and people in need, and it's really separated. It's our little ministry and philanthropic, ministries that we use. But I do not go and try to capture the world and tell everybody how great I am or, what I'm eating today.
So in other words, I'm pretty vulnerable.
I try to limit my vulnerabilities. I know.
Well, I'm pretty vulnerable because I'm on social media all the time. That's how I find out things for the show. That's how I talk about the show, promote it, and also different news events I like to post and comment about. So I'm pretty vulnerable.
Well, just again, I encourage you.
I don't want to make myself a target, but my gosh, I better.
Well, I would just suggest that you should have 2 different Facebook accounts, one for your public, and media and the things that you need to facilitate, and something that's very private and it stays within a small little network and individuals that you trust. But just taking anybody that you don't know is, you don't know who you're taking on. So unless you don't have some validity or confirmation as to the person, and I always ask, who are you? And I do a background check to see, do I know this person? Did I... and where do I know from them? Because I'm an athlete. I like to race, and so you just got to be extra sensitive to who you bring on in your little circle.
All right. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're talking with Raymond Friedman. He's the CEO of 2 Mile, a cybersecurity company that offers certifications and training in cybersecurity. Hey, Raymond, we got to take a 2-minute break. Can you hold on for us, please?
Sure, no problem.
And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. We're going to continue our conversation right after this break with Raymond Freeman about cybersecurity. Be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Hello, this is the Conservative Commandos, and we're coming back to you live. This is George Landreth and, of course, Rick Trader. And you can always hear a rebroadcast of today's show. If you want to do that, it's simple. You just go online. You can check us out at ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. And, of course, in the mornings at 9 a.m., you can log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m., you can log on to roarradio.net. At 2 p.m., you can log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, we've been discussing some cybersecurity issues, and one of the things that you've gotten some great help from our expert is just kind of how you can avoid some things. But Ray, can you give us some, from a national security perspective, how important is, I mean, after all, we've got nuclear missiles, we've got aircraft carriers, we've got great fighter planes with stealth technology. It may be important to save our banking information or protecting that kind of stuff. But on a national security basis, is this really that big a deal?
Absolutely. I mean, before about 20, 30 years ago, the landscape was different. But now everything runs on the network. Everything, interfaces to an IP address. And if you think about it, our national security is, our electric grid, our water system. I mean, all these things, if you ever go into the back server room, everything is interrelated and connected. And so this is really the assets that we have to preserve and secure. I mean, just think about it. If our electricity, goes down, what's it going to run?
Right.
Financial institution and banking systems, they won't work. The transactions, the local 7-Eleven, the gas, we have a serious issue here if we're vulnerable. So absolutely, I think it's the biggest major focus that we need to have more than ever. And I'm hoping that our administration is being very sensitive to that.
I would argue it's a great equalizer. There are countries out there that cannot match our military might. And these countries, not shockingly, have devoted a great deal of effort to hacking into the DoD's various computer systems, because their belief is we can't match America, but if we can disable what America has, then we are in the ballgame. And so I really appreciate you bringing this level of expertise, because I think Americans, sometimes their eyes will glaze over when you start talking about, computer programming and all this other stuff that's just, over their head in terms of that's not what they do. But the reality is, this isn't just protecting your banking information as if that's not important enough. This is about protecting, this is, in my mind, as important as having a nuclear deterrent, as having missile defense, as having aircraft carriers and stealth technology. Mm-hmm. And so now let me ask you a quick question. We know that there are literally thousands of attempts to hack into DoD's networks on a daily basis. Right. You're a guy who knows a lot about this. Let's just say that you were you're, I guess they call them white hat or the ethical hackers, and someone knew about this whole thing a while ago and said, hey, we're going to, I want you to take a look at what's going on with Hillary's server. How long could you have hacked into Hillary's server if you'd wanted to, and how long would it take you to do that?
Okay, well, first of all, the number one thing that you've got to look into before you decide to allow someone to host your data is that organization submitting to specific controls that are industry standard? right? I mean, and did you audit and ensure that they're implementing these controls, right? Because you're only as good as what they're doing. A lot of times, when we're into a contractual agreement with another organization, we ask, what are your policies? How many penetration tests do you do? What are they like? Do you got a letter, that confirms this, that you're doing it habitually? So that's the number one thing. And I never heard about their third-party audits, what policies or controls they've implemented. So you have to understand that server is only as good as what that hosting provider has implemented. You understand what I'm saying? Right? It's kind of like you go and you have a store, and you're a manager, and your owner says, how much have we made today? He says, we've received $100, and we've deposited $100. But that owner doesn't know if the manager is being truthful or not, because he doesn't have any controls to ensure that the amount of money that was received out of the cash register is the same amount of money that was deposited. Does he have a second person to sign off on these things? And these are the type of controls, again, there's a very elementary example. Those are things that we need to know as to what they were doing. And my understanding is that they had, it was never disclosed what kind of policies or controls that they've implemented or how many penetration tests that they have done. So that's number one. Number two, my understanding, the type of organization that they were was more of a mom-pop shop. So here's the question. If you're a high-level individual like Hillary, why wouldn't you at least host your data with a very high-level, reputable organization that takes security very serious? Isn't that a good question? Right? So
very good question.
So that is, that's the first few things that I want to come up with. And then finally, if indeed she decided to compromise the policies of our national security or the policies that they may have, can you imagine how vulnerable her phone was or where she went? Did she submit to the specific controls? If not, if she's hosting her data wherever she wants to, then it's almost for certain that, she compromised, her national security by utilizing the phone and the data wherever she wanted to go. And there are very unique and specific policies to ensure that you at least have encrypted emails and encrypted passwords and encrypted applications. Your phone is specifically encrypted. And I have a twin brother that is a high-level officer in SOCOM, and everything he has is encrypted with chips and you name it. It's very difficult to crack. It would take forever in high-level computers to do stuff. So I think it would have been relatively easy for some of these very advanced hackers, in Asia. And I'm aware of who they are. Trust me. We know who they are.
A lot of them, as I understand it, work in one very, very large building in communist China. Is that true?
You know what? We've known for a long time that there are a lot of the compromisations have come from Asia and mainly China. And China has invested a major amount of money to have some of the best hackers in the world. And there are certain things that we can do in the context of communication and data. And, we're the masters of the Internet, right? And so we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot when there are ways in which we can disconnect from China. And I know that there are other ways that China can go around the system and spoofing and so forth. But there's a lot of things that we can be doing that we don't do for the sake of, the PC police. And but we need to secure us first. We need to be sensitive to the Americans, right?
We are up against a break, but I want to thank you for bringing this information to us. Where can folks look you up on the Internet?
Mile2.com. That's where you can get all the training. If you're government, you get discounting. If you're a vet or you're in a difficult situation, we provide scholarships. This is what we're doing to help, one engineer at a time, to help the U.S. So, Mile2.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And we appreciate you being here. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's shows, of course you can do that. We're coming to you live, however, from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. This is, of course, WNJC, our flagship station, 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Talk Stream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We'll be right back.
crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
This is George Landreth and Rick Schrader and the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, and of course you can always log in at 9 a.m. in the morning to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m. You can log in at roarradio.net. At 2 p.m., you can log in to highplainsdailynews.com. And, of course, now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any radio, from any phone, by calling 832-999-1199. We are very privileged to be with our next guest. We've got former Congressman Paul Brown. He is a primary care physician, so it's appropriate to call him Dr. Brown as well as Congressman Brown. He represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia. While serving in Congress, he was appointed to serve on the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources. He served as the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. And I remember Congressman Brown was a very committed conservative. He was definitely not what was wrong with Washington. So with that, Congressman Brown, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
George, it's always a blessing for me to be with you guys, and I greatly appreciate what you and Rick and all the team do to try to promote the conservative movement. We've just got to take Washington back. We've got to restore fiscal sanity. We've got to go back to constitutionally limited government, as our founding fathers meant it. That's what I fought for, and that's what I'm continuing to fight for.
Yep, I'm not surprised at all. Knowing you, that doesn't surprise me one little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Tea Party Leadership Fund and what's going on there, and you can tie that into the debate tonight, the primary debate that's coming up, and just give us your take on how all these things work out.
George, I'm very happy to and excited to announce that we have a website that was the teapartyprimary.org. I encourage our listeners to go on that website, teapartyprimary.org. What we did there with the Tea Party Leadership Fund is we put forward a vote asking people all across this country to vote for the top 3 Republican candidates. We went through 6 cycles where we dropped off the bottom ones and then had people to come back and vote for the top 3 again. And so we kept going through that till we got to 3 finalists. And those 3 finalists were Dr. Ben Carson, Donald Trump, and Senator Ted Cruz. Just this afternoon at 3 p.m., we announced the winner of over 2 million conservative activists across this country voted in this teapartyprimary.org poll that we did. The winner is Senator Ted Cruz, and I encourage people to go on the website and help us to fund Senator Cruz's candidacy, or just sign up, email updates, etc. And the website again is teapartyprimary.org. Now back to the Tea Party Leadership Fund. We've got a website there, and it's the teapartyleadershipfund.com. What we're all about on the teapartyleadership.com is to try to get the right kind of people elected to the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, as well as now Senator Ted Cruz will be working to get Ted Cruz, my dear friend that I worked very strongly with, very closely with when I was in the U.S. House. Ted Cruz is the real deal. He's the real thing. If people want some change in Washington, D.C., and want a solid person who is going to do what he says, that's Ted Cruz. And so I'm excited to announce that he's won this poll that we ran on teapartyprimary.org. I encourage people to go on both websites, the Tea Party leadershipfund.com and teapartyprimary.org.
Interesting. Well, that is, it's one, I think it's great you continue to be involved. My boss for many years was Malcolm Wallop, U.S. Senator from Wyoming. He founded Frontiers of Freedom. And one of the reasons he did that is because even though he'd left the Senate, he did not want to not be involved. He felt like being involved mattered, and it sounds like you have that exact same commitment, and I really appreciate that. That's important.
Well, thank you, George. Actually, I cannot. I'm a U.S. Marine. I believe in this country. I believe in the Constitution of the United States. When I joined the Marine Corps as an 18-year-old years ago, in the military, the most recent was when I was got back in the Navy Reserve as a doctor in 2010, so I could be deployed, where I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. I swore to uphold the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. We've got a lot of domestic enemies of the U.S. Constitution. One of those is the majority leader in the U.S. Senate, Mitch McConnell. Another one of those domestic enemies of the Constitution is the Speaker of the House now today, and his predecessor, Paul Ryan and John Boehner. A lot of members of Congress are enemies of the Constitution, and they have built a government that is just totally out of control. We've got to reel this government in. We've got to start constraining the government by the enumerated powers of the U.S. Constitution. I'm fighting for the future of this nation, for the liberty and freedom, and for our kids' and grandkids' future. We've got to stop this out-of-control spending. We've got to stop creating debt that is just totally unsustainable. We have to start shutting down parts of the U.S. government and sending those powers back to the states or to the people. I want to shut down the Department of Education. I want to shut down the Department of Commerce and the Department of Labor. And while we're shutting down things, let's shut down the EPA also, as well as the IRS. And let's return those powers back to the states and the people. Bring manufacturing back so we can have a strong economy. We have good jobs for people. I've got to stay in that fight, George.
Well, I appreciate it. One of the things you made an interesting comment. You talked about being an enemy of the Constitution, and I think some people might think, well, you know, they're not necessarily an enemy. But I think one of the key things that's important about the Constitution is you can be an enemy to the Constitution in the way that, say, for example, Hillary is, or even more obviously, perhaps Bernie Sanders are, because they basically clearly don't care, and they constantly, the president has attacked the Constitution, talks about it as an antiquated document. But I would argue that you effectively become an enemy of the Constitution when you don't follow it, honor it, and use it as the standard by which you will judge good government. The moment you begin to view the Constitution as an impediment to the things that you would like to accomplish, even if you don't hate it, you have effectively become an enemy of that document. And I would argue our way of doing business with, government of limited powers and limited separated power, the whole concept of that government power had to be penned in and not allowed to mushroom and grow and grow.
Absolutely. You're just 100% right on with that, George. I consider anybody who thinks that the Constitution can be twisted around to fit whatever kind of policy that they want to promote as an enemy of the Constitution. Our founding fathers meant for government, the federal government, to be very limited, and the state government and the liberties that we have as individuals to be unlimited, or almost unlimited. Certainly my freedom and my liberty stops where yours begins. But the point is, the 10th Amendment says that any power that's not directly given to the federal government by the U.S. Constitution, nor those things that are prohibited from the states, those rights are reserved for the states or the people. It demands that government only be constrained and only do those things that are enumerated powers. For Congress, Article 1, Section 8 lists or enumerates the powers of Congress. There are only 18 things there that Congress has the constitutional authority to vote on. And when you use the Commerce Clause or the General Welfare Clause to have unlimited government, you're an enemy of the Constitution. You're an enemy to freedom and liberty, and those people need to be removed. And we've got to have a revolution at the ballot box and remove those kind of folks and put in place congressmen and senators who are going to stand firm on the original intent of the U.S. Constitution. And that's what we're doing at the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com. And that's the reason I encourage people to go on that website, to contribute, to come and enlist in an army to have that revolution at the ballot box. The TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com.
Excellent. Well, one of the things that when I used to teach constitutional law, I'd always remind the students that probably the most ferocious debate that occurred in the Constitutional Convention was whether we should have a Bill of Rights or not. Now, I'm glad we have it, but I am sympathetic to the argument of those who argued against it, because they didn't argue that they were not important. Their argument was there's only 18 powers given to the government. So we don't need to give a Bill of Rights because they don't have the right to take your freedom of speech. We didn't give them the power to set up, a government-run religion. And so why do we need this? And the truth of the matter is, had the founders foreseen that we would effectively ignore the limited powers given to government and just pretend that it has unlimited power, they would have had a lot more than the first 10 amendments. They would have had a lot more. Because the first 10 amendments, I would argue, were designed to be limits on the power of government. They weren't giving you rights. They were simply, they read, Congress shall make no law. Congress shall make no law. And so the idea is, they were saying this is one more additional limit we're placing on government. We've already said they can only do these 18 specific things. On top of that, by the way, in case that wasn't very clear for people who are not very bright, we're also going to give these 10 things, and doggone it, you can't do those things. And then the 10th Amendment was to punctuate it all by saying, by the way, when we said those 18 things, we really did mean it, and everything else, if you're one of those people who thinks the government should do something, then you can't talk to the federal government. You have to go to your local or state government, because they could do it if you'd like them to. But the federal government...
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. And in fact, the punctuation mark is an exclamation point, saying, by golly, this is what we mean for our government to be constrained by, is these enumerated powers. And you're 100% correct in that way of looking at it. You see, the thing is, our founding fathers and the genius of the Constitution believed that our rights and our liberty come from God Himself. That's the reason Thomas Jefferson penned in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator, endowed by God, with certain inalienable rights amongst these life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They believed they were inalienable. No one can take them away. Government doesn't give us the right to own a gun. God gives us that right. And I would submit that the First and Second Amendment are actually the guardians of liberty. We must not ever lose those rights, those God-given rights, and we must fight for them in courts, in Congress, in the public square, everywhere we possibly can. In Hosea 4:6, God says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." The problem I see, George, is that the American people have been stupefied, if that's a word, but they've been made ignorant of what the Constitution's all about. And lawyers who go to take constitutional law in law school, in most law schools around this country, aren't even taught the Constitution. They're taught what the Supreme Court says about the Constitution. I believe it is John Paul Stevens. What?
I was going to say, you're exactly right on that point, and that is a big point that I made in my class. I said, this is an academic course, and in academics you learn to cite primary sources, and then you quote secondary sources, and lastly tertiary sources. You never lead with the secondary and tertiary sources. And I said, when it comes to the Constitution, you always lead with the actual text. The next best source is what the people who wrote it said about it. Quite frankly, what the most recent Supreme Court said about it isn't a whole lot more important than what I think about it. And I mean, I think what is right. But the reality is, if you can't file a brief with the Supreme Court and said, George, this is what George says. And the reason you can't is because I'm not an authoritative source in the way that the actual document is. That's just something you learn. You learn this in high school when you do your first research paper, that you just can't go to an encyclopedia and look up their article and then kind of paraphrase it and submit that. You have to do real research and cite real sources. And yet it's law school. All they do is read case law. Some case books don't even have the Constitution in it.
And that's a sad commentary on where we are as a society, too, George. And the thing is, it has to change. What I have recommended people to do is not only read the Constitution, but read what our founding fathers said about it. The Federalist Papers were a group of essays actually written, as you well know, by three of our founding fathers: James Madison, the architect of the U.S. Constitution; John Jay, probably the most ardent Federalist who wanted a big central banking system; and the first U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice, John Jay. They wrote these articles to be printed in the newspapers in New York State to describe exactly what government should be under the U.S. Constitution. And we have a great resource. It's called The Federalist Papers in Modern Language. It was edited by Mary Webster. And they don't editorialize. They don't do anything except for just change or transliterate from old style English into new style English, so people can go and read what our founding fathers said that government must be under the Constitution. They did this to try to get New Yorkers to ratify it. So we can go to those original source documents. We can go to what they said. In fact, I've had a lot of people say, well, Paul Brown, you weren't around when they wrote the Constitution. How do you know what they meant? Well, they wrote about it. Mm-hmm. They gave us a ton of literature. They didn't have video games and TVs and radio. They wrote and they read. They were more educated on a global scheme than we are today. We're, of course, a whole lot more technologically advanced, but as far as the level of education, they had a much higher education, and they were homeschooled, by the way. They weren't stupefied by government schools. So we need to go back to those original source documents, to the Constitution. The Federalist Papers in Modern Language is a good resource so that people can read what government is supposed to be. They'll see, if they go there, that the Commerce Clause actually was a state limitation. It's one of the few things that the states were limited by. They wanted a free flow of commerce. They never, ever meant for the Commerce Clause to be a mechanism or a door to open up the federal government to do anything that they want to. They never thought that the federal government would control commerce as we see the word regulate today. They didn't mean it to be a controlling of commerce. What they meant for it to be was for commerce to be regular, for it to occur. They wanted a free flow of commerce across state lines as well as international commerce. So it's been turned on its head. American people need to read the Constitution. They need to read what our founding fathers said about it and demand that kind of governance from our U.S. senators and our U.S. House representatives.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are...
Hey, Rick.
Hey, how you doing? We are speaking with Congressman Paul Brown, who represented the 10th Congressional District in Georgia. Dr. Brown, tonight is the debate absence the elephant in room, that being Donald Trump. George and I were talking earlier, and I mentioned that maybe now we can have a real debate. Let's talk about substance issues. Let's talk about the real issues rather than Donald Trump all the time. What do you think we're going to get out of tonight's debate?
I think you're correct, Rick. I think we're going to get more substantive meat out of this debate than we have seen in the previous ones. It's going to be interesting with Donald Trump not there. We see some of the lower, they're not lower category candidates, but the candidates that don't have the type of support, like Rick Santorum, going over to Donald Trump's event. Whether this hurts Trump or helps Trump remains to be seen. But I think,
Dr. Brown, what do you say that says about Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee?
Right. Well,
can they be now? Can you even consider them serious candidates now that they're going to Trump's debate tonight? Or Trump's event, not a debate, but his event?
Well, they consider themselves serious candidates. I've known Rick Santorum since he was in the U.S. House before he even went to the U.S. Senate.
Right. I mean, I like Rick Santorum. I think he's a great guy. I think he would make a terrific president. But when you talk about bridesmaids following the bride around, I mean, I just don't know about the decision they're making to go to Trump's event.
Well, I disagree with that decision. I disagree with Trump's decision. And the thing is, I think it shows the character of not only Trump, but Santorum and Huckabee as well, particularly, though, of Trump. If he can't have his way, he's going to just go off and pout and do his own little thing. I don't know. It may or may not hurt Trump. Some pundits think it's going to help him tremendously, but that remains to be seen.
Well, I personally think it's going to help
Northern Iowans for him to do this.
Dr. Brown, I seriously think it's going to help the candidates who are going to do the debate, especially a candidate like Ted Cruz, because I think the American people are really going to see what a true leader is. Not a building buster, not somebody who wants the tallest building in town, so he goes after somebody's building with a sledgehammer, but somebody who is a real building builder, somebody who wants the tallest building in town, so he goes at his with more bricks and mortar rather than trying to bust somebody else's down.
Well, you look at what Trump did here, too, and the reason behind it, or at least what he says, is that Megyn Kelly doesn't like him, and he doesn't like her, and so he's going to just take his marbles and go elsewhere. The reality is, I've had several interviews with Megyn Kelly. She's a very intelligent person.
Hey, Dr. Brown, I hate to do this to you. You know, we love having you on, but we're up against the end of our show. We got to clear our airwaves, and I wanted to give you a minute to tell people about the Tea Party Leadership Fund one more time.
Well, please go on the website, theteapartyleadershipfund.com, and join us to be an army of patriots, of American citizens that are going to be providing the resources to the right kind of candidates across this country to set this country back on the right course, to restore fiscal sanity to Washington. You can go on the other website that we have, teapartyprimary.org, and contribute to our endorsed candidate, which is Ted Cruz. And we endorsed him because we had over 2 million Tea Party and patriots and conservatives across this country vote for him to be our endorsed candidate. So it's teapartyprimary.org and theteapartyleadershipfund.com.
Dr. Paul Brown, former congressman representing the 10th Congressional District in Georgia. You know, we love having you on. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. God bless.
God bless you and George, and keep up the great fight.
Thank you so much. George, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. Got to make a quick run, but we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.